Essentials of tort. 1. There must be a wrongful act or omission on the part of a person. 2. That wrongful act or omission must result in legal damages to another. 3. The wrongful act or omission must be of such a nature as to give rise to a legal remedy. Wrongful act or omission. First essential ingredient in constituting a tort is that a person must have committed a wrongful act or omission. There is some legal limitation or restriction on the conduct of a person that he should behave in such a manner as a reasonable person would have behaved in like circumstances. If a person does not observe that duty like a reasonable and prudent person or breaks it intentionally, he is deemed to have committed a wrongful act. A wrongful act may be a positive act or an omission which can be committed by a person either. A wrongful act may be a positive act or an omission which can be committed by a person either negligently or intentionally, or even by committing a breach of strict duty. E.g. If a person drives his motorcycle at an excessive speed in violation of law or fails to perform a duty as required by law, a breach of merely moral or religious duty will not suffice. It must be a duty primarily fixed by the law. E.g. once Missa was seriously ill and she was all alone in her house. She requested her neighbor B to look after her. B did this, but Missa never acceded to his request, with the result that Mr. B suffered a lot and became disabled. If it is a breach of religious duty which is not imposed by law, an action cannot be maintained. Dadfail v. O.S. Gurau. Held, the defendant was under no legal obligation to supply food to the temple's servant, and though his omission to supply food to the idol might involve a loss to the plaintiff, it was a breach of religious duty and could not entitle the plaintiff to maintain a suit. If an act or omission is done under some lawful excuse, it would not amount to breach of legal duty or a wrongful act. E.g. a police officer in following a thief trespass the land of Mr. B. Here the police officer will not be deemed to have committed a breach of legal duty because of lawful excuse or justification. 2. Legal damage. The second important ingredient in constituting a tort is legal damage. Legal damage means an invasion or infringement of private legal right. It is for the plaintiff to prove that there has been legal damage caused to him due to wrongful act of the defendant. If the plaintiff has not suffered any loss, still he can succeed if his private legal right is violated. What is legal right? According to Eyring, a very simple definition that right are legally protected interests. According to Austin, right is a faculty which resides in a determinate party or parties by virtue of a given law and which avails against a party other than a party, or parties in whom it resides. Division of rights into two kinds based on interest recognized and protected by law. Private rights. These are the rights which belongs to a particular person to the exclusion of the world at large, vest in person by virtue of law. E.g. right to reputation, right to bodily safety and freedom, right to property, etc. If a person has a legal right, then in law, others have a legal duty towards him not to violate his legal right. Right and duties are therefore correlative. Whenever a person's legal right is infringed or violated without lawful excuse, he has a right of action against the person who infringes or violates it. E.g. a trespass the land of B, here A has violated the private legal right of B by committing breach of legal duty. 2. Public rights. Those rights which belong in common to the members of the state generally. E.g. public peace. When a public right's violated by a person, then the remedy of the public is by indictment. In other cases, state take action against offender and the offender is punished. In case of breach of public right, a private action in tort can also be commenced if there is a special, peculiar and substantial damage to the plaintiff. E.g. a notorious dacoit entered a mohalla, threatened the persons of that mohalla and also beat Mr. B, a resident of that mohalla. He has disturbed the public peace and also has inflicted particular and substantial damage to B. Injuria or infringement of private legal right resulting from a breach of legal duty is an indispensable element in constituting a tort. Without injuria, in action in tort can be maintained. 3. Legal remedy. The third essential for an action in tort is that the act complained of must give rise to a legal remedy. there must be some legal remedy against a wrongful act. A tort is a civil injury. All civil injuries are not tort. Necessary that wrongful act must come under the category of wrongs, tort, for which the remedy is a civil action. Principal remedy for a tort is damages other remedies. E.g. injunction, specific restitution of property or an action by the plaintiff himself without going to the court. I.e. self-help. For mathematical formula. Tort is a civil injury for which an action by the injured can be maintained against the wrongdoer in the civil court, provided there is a legal remedy for that wrongful act. Wrongful act plus legal damage plus legal remedy is equal to tort. Wrongful act, breach of a legal duty. Legal damage, infringement of private legal right. Legal remedy, at least one of 4 remedies. For ubi jus ibi remedium. Legal authority to demand reparation or something, and where there is a right, there is a remedy. Ashby v. White. If the plaintiff has a right, he must of necessity have a means to vindicate and maintain it, and a remedy if he is injured in the exercise of enjoyment of it, and indeed it is a vain thing to imagine a right without a remedy, for want of right and want of remedy are reciprocal. 5. Foundation of tortium liability. Professor Winfield. 1. All injuries done to another person are torts unless there is some justification recognized by law. 2. There are definite numbers of torts outside which liabilities in tort does not arise.